We open on a scene of an adventuring party taking on a rock golem in a dungeon, and they all have their roles to play. There is an attacker and a healer with their specific tasks to accomplish, and as the golem tries to attack the healer, we see our MC, Rudo, run out to block the attack because his role is the tank. The job of the party's tank is to draw all enemy attacks towards himself and protect his fellow party members. It is seen as an uninteresting role and not given nearly as much praise as it deserves, but that is going to change because Rudo is the protagonist now. Never mind, Rudo is going to get cancelled for the look he has on his face while thinking about his little sister. His teammate Nin snaps him out of it before the Twitter mob starts doing their thing, and he realizes he must have been daydreaming out loud for everyone to hear. Nin comments that Rudo must really love his sister to be acting like that in public, but would it kill him to show a little interest in someone else, like maybe the girl standing in front of him? But no, his sister is the cutest girl in the world to him, so there could never be room for another girl. But jokes aside, Rudo doesn't really have time to think about romance because of his circumstances. His sister is afflicted with an incurable disease, and his only hope of saving her is the treasure of the labyrinth that is said to be able to grant any wish. But after the embarrassing loss they had yesterday, it looks like he won't be able to find it anytime soon after all. He also apologizes for letting the team down, but Nin tells him that he did his job as a tank perfectly. It just made no sense why his absorbed shield was being depleted even without being hit once. However, it wasn't just this time. Every time they enter a dungeon, his shield starts depleting for no real reason, and because of that, he consumes a lot of the team's potions. He knows he has been putting a burden on the shoulders of the team, but Nin rebuts his claim, saying he is doing an excellent job as their tank. Besides, his absorbed shield has a value of $99.99, which is the highest amount ever, so he is incredibly valuable to the team. Just then, the hero, Kyglas, walks into the guild with all eyes on him. He is the leader of the party that Rudo is part of, and he introduces them to the new members of the party. Nin doesn't agree with his plan of adding 2 extra members to the party since the dungeon's rules only allow up to 6 party members at a time, but now they are up to 7. Kyglas has an easy fix for that and tells Rudo that from this day forward, he has been kicked out of the party. Nin tries to contest the decision, but Kyglas is adamant because Rudo is useless as a tank. After absorbing just 1 hit in the last fight, his shield would drop and he would have to consume a potion to retire it. So when the shield broke after the fight was over, that was the final straw Kyglas, and he decided that Rudo had to go. Nin tries to defend him, saying that his shield only broke because of the depleting effect that happens to him when he enters the dungeon, but Kyglas, just thinking, must be a result of his skills interfering since he possesses 2 unknown skills. And while it may be true that certain skills can have negative effects, there is no proof that Rudo's skills are what caused his shield to go down. For that reason, he went out to hire someone new for the team, an evasion-type tank that dodges attacks while fighting alongside them, and now that the role of tank has been filled by someone else, they no longer need him, so he reiterates that Rudo is out. Rudo realizes that there is nothing he can do if the party leader wants him gone, so he takes the firing in stride and leaves without a fuss. But to rub salt in the wound, Kyglas speaks up again and says since he caused them to make no profit last time, he will be taking Rudo's sword as compensation for it. The others on the team are apologetic because they know Rudo is still a competent tank, but there is nothing they can do for him. Nin is most torn up about it and doesn't want to say goodbye to Rudo, so he tells her that she can come visit him at his home anytime she wants to. He can't promise that he will always be home, but now that he has been fired from the party, he is going to go live with his sister. Nin is happy to receive the invitation, but she puts up the tsundere act regardless, which is a familiar joy for Rudo. He tells her he will be awaiting a time when they can meet again, and the two go their separate ways. Later that day in the town square, Rudo thinks back to what Kyglas had said about his hidden skills probably being the reason that he is losing his shield so much. But even if that is the case, it's not like he can rely on anyone's identify skill ability right now to find out either. He continues to sit and wonder what to do until he hears a group of D-rank adventurers talking about an escort mission they are taking in the direction of Kuras. And that just so happens to be the direction that Rudo is heading towards today. So he goes up to the group and asks if they would be willing to let him join them on their mission as unpaid labor, of course. The adventurers are startled by Rudo's huge frame and ask what rank he is. Even though he seems really capable, he is still at F rank somehow because he spent all his time in dungeons killing slimes. His pride couldn't take the blow of having to tell these kids that he is much lower ranked than they are, but as luck would have it, he doesn't have to. The kids recognize him as having been a part of the hero party, so they are immediately on board with the idea of having him join their party. He feels like he may be scamming them by letting them think he is really high ranked when he actually isn't, but then again, he is working for free here, so it's not like they are losing anything. Besides, the old man whom they were meant to escort has arrived, so they all get in the carriage and leave the city for Cuirass. Rudo swears to himself that he will at least keep the carriage safe with every fiber of his being. The journey goes pretty well, and they all become pretty well acquainted with one another along the way. But as they had nearly made it to Cuirass, a dense fog began to roll in, making the driver think this might be a good time to set up camp for the night. However, Rudo has seen enough movies to know that you never stop in the middle of a foggy forest. They are pretty close to Cuirass now, so if they keep going at this rate, they will eventually make it there soon. They should be safe as long as they watch out for possible ambushes in the area. Rudo notices something isn't right and tells the man to stop the wagon. The other adventurers ask if it is a monster or something, but he isn't sure, and it could also be bandits, so he asks them to stay put in the wagon while he heads out to deal with it. He gets down and comes out in front to hold off whatever it is that may be coming there, but instead of a group of bandits, he finds a lone girl who immediately collapses from exhaustion. Rudo is no fool and knows this could be a trap, but after he checks and doesn't sense anyone else in the area, he realizes the girl is in need of actual help. He slowly approaches the girl and asks if she is alright, but after a well-timed, plot-sensitive gust of wind blows through, we see that the gust of wind, Rudo discovers that the girl is both naked and has a magic stone in her chest. He has questions he would like to ask, but before he can do that, they get attacked by a giant forest snake. The old man gives the most useful advice of the century and tells everyone not to let the snake bite them. It's not like they want to be bitten, but I'm pretty sure the snake isn't going to ask for consent. The snake immediately goes after the kids, but doing his duty as the tank, Rudo provokes the snake into attacking him instead. The snake turns its attention toward Rudo and spits its venom at him, which he blocks with his shield. However, some of the venom still manages to make contact with him, but is alright because he has a skill that negates all negative status effects. He tells the others not to worry about him and to just get themselves ready to attack while he draws its attention. But even if he says that, how are they meant to attack that thing? Due to their inaction, Rudo gets overwhelmed by the snake's attacks and is flung backwards. It looks like it's the end for him, but then he remembers his sister's cute face, and if he dies, he will never get to see it again, so he refuses to meet this end here. He gets up and tells the other adventurers that he doesn't have his sword with him now, so he can't carry the team to victory alone. And that means they are going to have to get off their asses and actually fight for themselves. They regain their will to fight and take up their weapons as Rudo swears to them that as a tank, he will make sure he blocks all the monster's attacks. After leaving the snake stunned, it is left wide open for the adventurers to attack, and with their combined power, they are able to get it into critical condition. The snake now begins to charge up its killing blow, and the man they are escorting warns that he needs to dodge it. However, if this is truly meant to be the snake's killing blow, then Rudo sees meaning in stopping it, so he stands and takes the full force of the snake's most powerful move. The snake gets stopped and is stunned from the recoil and blow to its pride after his most powerful strike failed to do anything. With the perfect opening provided, the team finish off the snake with their own killing blows. They are ecstatic that they managed to actually kill a forest snake, but they couldn't have done it if Rudo weren't with them. He asks them if they could start carving up the corpse to get the valuables while he goes to check on that girl they found earlier. He finds her hiding behind a bush and asks if she's okay. She must have been running away from the snake they just fought, but now that it has been taken care of, he wonders what she's going to do. She doesn't know and doesn't even have a place to stay, so Rudo offers to bring her with him to his home in Avantia. But definitely not because she's a cute loli. She's happy to accept Rudo's offer, but there is still the issue of her lack of any clothing. But that gets fixed rather quickly as well, since the old man offers a dress that he had in his stock as a little thank you gift for saving him from the snake. The girl runs off into the bushes to change, leaving Rudo and the old man to speculate on her reason for being here. The old man thinks she might be an escaped slave, but it seems more likely that she is a homunculus. They are usually created to be servants to people, but it is strange to see them traveling alone without a master. She might have some kind of unique situation that led her to this point, but for now, Rudo decides that he will look after her. Once they reach the city of Cuirass, Rudo says his goodbyes to the D-rank adventurers and begins to head off with the homunculus girl, but the party calls him back and asks if he would like to join up with them permanently from now on. Rudo appreciates the offer, but his end goal is to find the treasure that is hidden in the labyrinth, the one that can grant any wish and also can coincidentally create homunculi. Hearing the word homunculi, the D-rank adventurers begin to dump a ton of unsolicited homunculus hatl, not realizing that the girl with Rudo is one. They say they don't like how they always do their slave work disingenuously, like they are supposed to be happy to become slaves or something. But before they can unknowingly hurt her feelings even more, Rudo puts a stop to the conversation and tells them he really has to go. As he leaves with the girl, he remembers that they haven't introduced themselves yet, so he asks her what her name is. She stops in her tracks as she's reminded that she doesn't actually have a name, but since it would be difficult to keep referring to her as girl or the homunculus, he decides to give her the name Luna. Luna is extremely appreciative of him giving her her first name, and come evening time, the two settle down to camp for the night. Rudo prepares the food and tells Luna that they should be able to get to Avancia by tomorrow if they get up early in the morning, so he wants them to get some rest. But while he isn't paying attention, Luna notices some monsters staring them down from the bushes, so as they attack, she takes a dagger and stabs them all to death in an instant. This surprising feat at least sheds light on a bunch Rudo had about her. Luna must have been an illegally made homunculus, so in other words, she is a battle loli. She also still has the emotions that are usually taken out of the homunculus, so homunculi like her are usually disposed of, but Rudo didn't have the heart to abandon her out there. Still, he wonders why she didn't fight the snake if she had so much power. She explains that she is mainly proficient in magic, so her melee skills aren't all that great. This intrigues Rudo since she can even use magic, but his eyes go wide once he learns that she has the skill Identify. This skill is impossibly hard to come by, and the nearest person who had it was all the way over in the neighboring kingdom, and they even died a few years ago. So the battle loli is the only one in the world right now that has that skill. Rudo asks if she can use it to identify his skills, and she has no problem with it, so she begins identifying. He has 4 skills in total, one that provokes his enemies into attacking him, and another that relieves him of all negative status effects. Then there's one that converts damage taken into strength, and finally a skill called Shield of Sacrifice. It is a skill that allows him to take on the damage that his team receives at the cost of his absorbed shield durability. So this entire time he was only losing his shield because he was protecting his teammates. Screw what Kyglas said, Rudo is not useless. And now, he finally gets to see his sister again. This was the end of episode 1. We will cover the next episode as soon as it's out. In a bustling city, the people live their lives as they normally would, but the peace and quiet they enjoy won't last for long as we see people running in panic from a hilltop. And for good reason too, because moments later the rumbling begins. The entire city is shaken to its very foundation, yet no titans are approaching, so the cause remains unknown. The tremors settle down for a bit, but just when the citizens were starting to believe they were safe once more, it starts back up even more violent than before. This is the story of the first of many such events, but for Yuno, the distant Talon, it begins with a memory of a school friend called Lucelles. We see Yuno walking into her school gates with a stoic expression on her face, but as Lucelles passed by her, she couldn't help but stare at her in awe because there was something interesting about the girl. She regains her composure and continues walking as all the students head into class for their lecture. The professor is talking about word arts and how they bring life to the will that exists in the spoken word, and I'm sure it is a very well done lecture, but we'll never know because Yuno didn't give an F about what he was saying. Just like the average regular university student, she wasn't paying attention and rather spent her time staring straight at Lucelles across from her. It's blatantly obvious by now, but as Lucelles looks at her and smiles, social anxiety gets the better of Yuno, and she turns away in embarrassment. Since Yuno clearly isn't going to take the initiative, Lucelles goes up to her after class and asks if she is busy later. Yuno is startled but says she doesn't have any plans for the day, mostly because she has 0 friends. So with her lack of a social life confirmed, Lucelles asks if she would be willing to help teach her about force arts since she is supposedly great at using it. And if you were wondering what force arts are, it was probably covered in the lecture Yuno wasn't paying attention to. Yuno affirms that her force arts are the best among her abilities, but she asks if Lucelles really wants her to be her instructor, and Lucelles answers that she wouldn't have it any other way. They live in the Nagan Labyrinth City, a place where scholars and explorers alike gathered. It was built from the center of the labyrinth of Kiazuna, the self-proclaimed demon lord. And as you would expect from a town built in the center of a labyrinth named after a demon lord, it comes with its fair share of dangers. Namely, these robot monsters that are commonly found in there, but on this occasion came up to the surface and needed to be subdued before it could cause any casualties. The swordsmen who were tasked to handle it simultaneously stabbed their guns into its body before stabbing fire and causing the robot to power down. They can't believe one of these things came out of the labyrinth, but it probably just followed a bandit out. However, they don't have much time to ponder the reason because the thing isn't dead yet, so they need to destroy its life seal. While that is going on, Yuno gives Lucelles her lesson on force arts, and after the explanation, Lucelles is able to use force arts to make a rock float in the air. The two begin to bond after that and spend time together, talking about things normal friends would discuss and ending the day by staring off into the sunset. Lucelles mentions her dream of uncovering all the secrets of the labyrinth and rests on Yuno's shoulder, and Yuno thinks to herself that there is no reason to be scared anymore. The true Demon King is dead, so the age of fear is over. But it has been peaceful for 3 whole minutes now, so something had to go wrong, and that's when the rumbling happened. And immediately after, even though she only got 3 minutes of screen time, we watch in horror as Lucelles is torn apart, limb by the robot monsters from the dungeon. Yuno is powerless to save her as her shrieks of agony fade out with her life, so as the robot looks at her, she runs away so she doesn't become its next victim. She sees a mother and child begging for help, but now the Titans have shown up and her mind can't handle the destruction around her. She somehow manages to escape the city without suffering any injuries, or at least no physical damage was incurred, because the psychological damage of seeing her best and only friend die in such a gruesome manner will stick with her for the rest of her life. She wishes she had died back there instead of Lucelles and begs for it all to stop, but her screams attract a robot to her, and while she expects to die here, she uses her force arts to at least put up a fight against it. But as she fires force arrows at the robot, she fricking one-shots it. If she could do that this entire time, that means she could have saved Lucelles if she tried, and that only adds to her survivor's guilt. The ruckus attracted more robots to her location, but this time there are too many for her to take them all out in one hit. Still, she is done with living in this cruel world and would gladly embrace death since she doesn't deserve a life after letting Lucelles die. However, her death wish remains unfulfilled as the approaching robots are sliced to pieces by an unknown savior. A boy with a majorly chipped sword appears beside her and asks if she really wants to die. Seeing that this guy is probably the type who would kill her if she asked him to, she takes back her death wish and struggles to speak clearly. The guy says things are going to get really interesting after everything goes to hell. You can do what you want, go where you want to go, and the IRS can't come after you for not paying taxes. Yuno analyzes the situation and realizes it should be impossible to take down the robots like the boy did while using a chipped sword, so she assumes he must be a visitor from another world. The guy confirms it, although this is the first time the word visitor has been used to describe it, and he goes on to exclaim that he's surprised that this world has robots too, though they are called golems here and are no match for his sword. He continues walking towards the city in ruins, but Yuno tries to get him to give up on saving it, because it is doomed no matter what he does. He doesn't see why he should just accept that the city is doomed, so Yuno points out that most of the people are dead, the city is on fire, and there is a Titan golem rampaging about. How is he going to take something like that out with just a chipped sword? The labyrinth itself turned into that giant golem. But while she was busy talking about how screwed the town was, a visitor got back to business and saved her from a golem that was sneaking up behind them. He doesn't care much about what Yuno has to say. He just asks her if she's got any food to spare since he hasn't had breakfast, and you can't go Titan slaying on an empty stomach. She says she has some food rations on her, so the visitor asks for some of those in exchange for taking down the Titan golem. He was just about to start anyway since it looked like it would be fun. Yuno can't believe this guy is willingly going to go up against a monster like that and asks who he is, so the visitor introduces himself as Sojuru Yagyu, the last Yagyu on Earth. Sojuru brings up the words arts he had seen Yuno use when she shot those arrows at the golems and asks her to teach him how to use them. But from what she learned when she actually paid attention in class, visitors aren't able to use powers like word arts because they come from a world that is solely based on the laws of physics, and the words they use are nothing more than sound. So they would never be able to understand the concept of word arts. Sojuru assumes that must be because he speaks Japanese, but they speak using word arts. In fact, that is the only reason they are able to communicate right now. The people of this world use word arts to ask objects to do things that the laws of physics normally wouldn't allow. But her explanation are indeed beyond what Sojuru can understand, so he gives up on learning it and decides to stick to using his katana. Yuno once again tells him not to go fight that thing because he'll die, but he says that doesn't matter. She brings up another point that everyone in the city is already dead, and killing that thing won't bring them back, so why bother risking your life to defeat it? Sojuru doesn't get what she means by that. Why would running away be the only option? And Yuno begins to have flashbacks of how she ran away from Lucelles without trying to help her at all. She can't forgive herself for what happened, but what are you supposed to do against a walking disaster like that? She can't ask him to put his life in danger and fight that thing. Sojuru tells her to calm down while he makes one thing clear. He doesn't give a damn about what she wants, he's just gonna fight that thing because he thinks it is going to be fun. And as the Titan Golem finally notices the two of them, he decides it is time to begin the fun. He runs down the hill with great speed while being chased by some robots and slices them all in half with just one slash. As he makes his way towards the Titan, he continues to slash anything that gets in his way and only gets faster the further he goes. The golem tries to smash Sojuru with such force that it sends shockwaves all the way back to where Yuno was sitting, but that wasn't enough to stop him as he is now running up the golem's arm and showing no signs of slowing. The golem locates him and begins firing hundreds of arrows at Sojuru's body, but he is able to deflect them all with his sword. He ends up sliding down the golem's arm, and he is loving every second of it. The golem sends out several small golems to go after Sojuru, but they are unable to do anything against his insane speed and power, so eventually the golem begins using a mechanism that allows it to use word arts and charges up a huge blast from its chest. The same one that it used to scorch the city, so there should be no way that Sojuru survives this, as a deadly blast is unleashed at him. But in order for that to actually do something, it would have to touch him first, and he is simply too fast for that to work on him. He slits past the beam and straight up to the golem's head, slicing it in half and killing it. Yuno is in awe of the amazing feat that Sojuru just accomplished, but this was just a pre-breakfast warm-up. He had predicted that the golem wouldn't harm itself with its word arts, so he used that to his advantage and got in close, but even with its head severed, the machine isn't defeated yet. It raises its metal fist and brings it down on Sojuru, but he stands there, ready for it. We get a little information about Sojuru's Yagyu heritage, and it is said that the founder of the Yagyu clan was able to defeat the student of a master swordsman with the Midodora technique. Basically, he dodges the attack, then steals the opponent's weapon before leaving him looking goofy as he falls to the ground. The ultimate disrespect. And that is exactly what Sojuru is going to do here. As the golem brings its fist toward him, he leaps up and cuts it off in just the right moment to redirect its momentum and have the arm fly backward and punch the golem straight in its own face. This finally does the trick, and the golem loses power completely as it falls to the ground, and Sojuru slides down next to it while admiring his handiwork. With the main body destroyed, all the smaller golems lose power as well, so the calamity is brought to an end by Sojuru. But even though he did exactly what he said he would do, Yuno still can't explain why the labyrinth turned into a giant golem in the first place. She starts trying to blame it on Sojuru because of how nonchalant he was and thinks it might have only activated because it sensed his strength, or maybe he even activated the thing just so he could fight it. But all that is just her hating on him for no reason, because the man just wants to have fun with a good fight, nothing more and nothing less. He walks back up to her, proclaiming his victory over the monster and how much fun he had doing it. It was even better than when he used to cut up tanks back on Earth. Yuno questions how he could have known how to defeat the golem like that, but it's easy for him if he puts his mind to it. With the way the golem was built, he was able to deduce that the right arm was the only place where a weak point could exist, so he took advantage of it. With all that done, he decides to take his leave, but before that, Yuno calls him back and gives him the travel rations he had asked for earlier, since he actually did defeat the golem. Sojuru accepts and takes the ration, scarfing it down with no hesitation since it is way better than what he usually eats. Bugs and leaves. This is where Yuno realizes something about herself. She's a hater. She hates strong people for being so much more powerful than her and trivializing the things that brought her so much agony. That golem destroyed her life, but to Sojuru, it was just a fun battle. She knows what she feels is wrong, but she doesn't have anything else to live for, so if she is going to do just one thing, she wants to see Sojuru die. But she is weak as hell compared to him, so instead, when he is deciding where he wants to go after this, she points him in the direction of Oriatia, the largest country in this world. They are gathering heroes from all over the land because they are planning something big, and there are definitely other strong people there, so it piques Sojuru's interest. The reason she directed him there is in hopes that he meets someone stronger than him and die in battle. There are many strong people in this world, so there has to be at least one that can defeat him. She offers to guide him to the city so he won't draw suspicion, but Sojuru can already tell that she's up to something. But he doesn't care and thanks her for offering to show him the way there. With what has happened, she is free to do whatever she wants because she has nothing left to lose, so she introduces herself to him and they begin their journey together. This is the story of the first of many Shura, a boy who can defeat numerous golems with a single sword, one who understands the vital spots of living creatures and has a keen talent for killing. He could not be contained to the reality of his own world, and is known as the last swordsman, Sojuru the Willow Sword. This was the end of episode 1. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.